and welcome back to Bengali Girl by NTK. This is your podcast host, Nikita, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Now, as I'm slowly coming back to my weekly routine of publishing an episode, I have to preface why it has been challenging the past few months to do so. So last episode, I discussed, my mental state, which prevented me to publish new episodes, and the rest of the reasons was that I was actually not feeling confident in my content. And I understand that, this is my real estate in the interwebs, but I just did not feel authentic. And this is something that I still struggle to the day. I do all of this by myself, the editing, the intro music, the background publishing, etc., etc. And I felt like I was putting so much pressure on myself that I gave up. This year, I've had to have an honest conversation with myself. To be honest, I had to be honest that I need to take baby steps and be consistent. And this rule pretty much applies to every aspect of my life. I realized that I'm in no race. There is no expectation to finish something, and that we are the harshest judge of our own selves. I kind of also rushed through my goals in the last episode, and I think you, the listener, could understand my slight uncomfortness while I was speaking. And honestly, I never state my goals out loud because I never want others to know that I failed at something or I'm doing something, because as Bengalis, we grew up about, listening and hearing and even witnessing some very, very high grade nazar. But on the other hand, the reasons I did mention all the goals that I did in the last episode is because it kind of makes me feel accountable. I was uncomfortable that I went into my goals and then didn't explain the context. So I am sorry for the rushed ending to the last episode. But, growing up in a Bengali household, goals were not set by myself, but by my parents. For example, like a school year, Nikita first hobe. And I was totally studious and I was definitely in the top 5 students of my grade, but never the first, except in grade 4, which did hurt my mom more than me for sure. And I was never pushed to pursue after school activities such as piano or swimming classes, because all that time had to be dedicated to studying. The only activity I can recall are dance rehearsals for, the upcoming consulate, society, or embassy functions. So when I did start living by myself at the age of 20, when I moved to Australia, I felt lost. I was shocked at the sudden appearance of so much time, without my mom detailing my schedule, or even being reachable because of the time difference, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't do well, if I'm being honest. There were so many activities that I did rather than growing myself. I felt like I was just trying to establish roots. When you move to a new place, it can be very intimidating. It can be scary. You might not have a lot of friends around or family or just your circle around, and it can be very scary, right? And what did I do? I tried to make friends. I rushed into friendships or relationships and stuff like that. And I was just trying to root myself. Just like basically copying the same routes that I had back home. But that's not going to happen. Life doesn't work that way. The routes are never going to be the same. This was a different flavor, a different country, a different culture. People's expectations from this country or culture is also different. So I didn't do well, if I'm being honest. I also stopped reading books. Now, a hobby that I loved since my childhood. I am a lifelong book lover. I was once the reigning top reader in school, the TWS in Dubai. So much so that my picture was a regular feature on the library signboard. My first book that I bought for myself was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in the first grade. And I remember vividly, I was there, like I can literally transport myself there right now. I was going through the book section in Safir in Fujairah. I don't know if Safir still exists in Fujairah. I haven't been there. I think the last time I was there was like 2013 or 2014. And the cover got me of Snow White, because I never saw a princess with hair my color, because Barbie was blonde and so was Cinderella and Rapunzel. And I know that we had Meena cartoon, but I grew up in UAE, so it was difficult to relate to Meena so much because the upbringing was different, and I don't know, I just couldn't commit to Meena cartoon at that age. And I'm not going to explain why, because I was a child, okay? I don't know how things worked then. I just recently started realizing why my actions are my actions, because I went to therapy, so whatever. So I took the book to my dad, who agreed to buy it, telling me that the 5 dirhams to buy this book will be taken out of my pocket money, which was 5 dirhams a month. But I didn't care. I wanted something to represent me, even if it is just my hair. Something that my friends at school would read as well, and I could relate to them, because who doesn't know Snow White, right? Well, I didn't until then. Side note, I did not think I was Snow White, or thought that I'm white like her. The only resemblance that I saw was my hair. Of course, I didn't have like 7 dwarfs hiding somewhere. I mean, I wanted to put this out there because I literally and this is also, I think, a trauma of mine, that I was a lanky tan brown girl through and through, who was trying to fit in so hard, who didn't know what her role in the school society has to be. Because as you know, and because we've watched the Mean Girls, if you haven't, you must be living under a rock or something. There are like certain groups in school, right? And I didn't know where to fit in, because academically I was supposed to be with the nerds. I was like in the top 5. I always sat in the front. But then during the break times or after school online, I was like talking to pretty much everyone. It was just a different time. I didn't know which group I belonged to. But coming back to Snow White, this book taught me that my hair is ebony black. Ebony is a word that I learned for the first time, and flexed every time someone talked about hair color. It's like saying, yes, my hair is actually ebony black and not brown. I was so happy to have my black hair in a very popular cartoon, or Disney, especially when everyone older than me kept saying that their hair is actually dark brown, and then they would run towards the sun and show that, look, under the sun I'm a dark brown. We've all done that. I've also done that after I grew up, but we've all done that because black hair was not that cool growing up. I don't know, maybe it was for you when you were growing up, but for me it wasn't. Like, it was just so basic. But moving on from hair, that was when I started. So after Snow White, I would read a lot of Enid Blyton. I don't know, where did Enid Blyton disappear? I haven't seen an Enid Blyton for so long. And the other one that I would read is Goosebumps. Now these are like horror books, right? Again, I don't know where they are. I haven't seen one in so long, but they were so popular growing up. And then of course we had Archie comics that I would read a lot, and I loved it. And I was always Team Betty. I hated Veronica, but again, I kind of liked her because her hair was black too. So I was trying to, fit into that world as well. Just like, oh, do I like Betty or do I like Veronica? Not sure. But I actually stopped reading when I went to university, which was 2013, 2014. And it was also my first feat of freedom, because in university, my parents, of course, couldn't sit down and sit beside me and, you know, pashe boshe thakbe and amar porte hobe and stuff like that was not happening. I was supposed or responsible for my own education. And then also the grades were not being disclosed to parents, like they've mentioned this. So again, my parents only relied on me for telling them my grades that I was getting. And guess what? Your girl lied, of course. Of course. Every time they would ask, oh, Nikita, like, tomorrow semester shesh hoise, what did you get? And I was like, oh yeah, I got all HD, like high distinctions, except for one. I got a distinction. And they're like, oh, try better next time. I know my parents are never going to listen to this podcast, so I'm completely safe. But yeah, your girl did lie, because I think I was very mediocre in university. I was never like a high distinction student. I would randomly get a high distinction out of nowhere. And those subjects especially were just so creative. For example, in uni, I had this marketing subject where you're supposed to like create an ad for a product, and I had so much fun, and the professor was really impressed with our group work. So I think it was more about like the creative stuff, or things that I hated in uni was like, how can you base things so much in theory? You know, the world is changing around us. It cannot sit and be in theory all the time. But also I was busy with boy issues and weird friendships, so I just didn't read. I started reading again in 2020 when I saw that Midnight Sun was releasing. Now, Midnight Sun is Edward's POV of Twilight. Now, fact for you guys, not for my friends, I was a twihard in school. So my first fantasy or vampire novel was Twilight, the Twilight series. I didn't read Harry Potter by then. We would only watch the movies. So Twilight was my first, and I was always Team Edward. This year, my goal is to read 365 books. I am currently done with 23 and tracking. But I'm tracking it through my Goodreads account. So that's helping me to actually keep track, and I can leave my opinions on the book and stuff. So it's very good. I wish I had that when I was growing up. The number 365 books was more of a challenge to myself, and to also push myself to read more genres, because I got swept into the romantasy genre last year, and I want to kind of get out of that fold. So till now, I haven't really gone out of my comfort zone of genres, but soon will. I think the one thing that I'm not comfortable reading is autobiographies. I detest them because I sometimes feel like it kind of glorifies the person a bit much, and then also they don't really go in depth with their mistakes most of the time. You know, and I want to know that the mistakes. Why? Because that makes us humans. But I have to jump into autobiographies because I don't think 365 will be done that easily. Goals are difficult to manage, right? Sometimes we put on like such unrealistic expectation, and it takes time to understand if a goal is to grow yourself or to prove yourself to others. It's a very thin line. For example, you want to start working out, right? If that goal is to increase your stamina and health, then good. That's a good goal to have, a healthy goal to have, a goal that you might even achieve. But if it is to lose weight or drastic weight to impress others or to fit into a dress, not much of that goal will truly bring happiness. I have been there, done that, as Pitbull says, because you will always find someone who isn't impressed, and our human brain will be fixated on that. You know, I recently finished reading Sapiens. Now, that book paints such a different picture to us humans, because my perceptions were definitely that my perceptions after reading the book changed or kind of formed, and that is that we humans have always had a violent streak and a need to be dominant. Did you know? Well, I read from that book, but hopefully you don't know, so it's interesting to you. But us humans, we were not top of the food chain. We used to be like in the mid section of the food chain, but once fire was discovered, we shot right up and we went to the top of the food chain, which kind of, imbalanced a lot of things in nature and the rules that were set by the nature. Also sad to hear that almost half of very, very special species in Australia were gone because of us humans as well. And of course, we know the famous dodo. I saw the first dodo, not not a real animal, but a sculpture of dodo in South Africa, in Joburg, when we went to the cradle of humankind. And oh my God, guys, it was so sad because, again, if you didn't know, I can tell you, right? Dodos, I think, I'm not sure anymore now, but we're in the Caribbean, and the island that they were on was pretty much just them and some other chill animals, no humans. But when the humans first came, of course, by ships and boats and stuff, they started catching dodos to eat as food. Now, the dodo did not really run away from them because they didn't know that this was danger, nor did they have any way to run because they never needed to build or have the evolution done to run from predators and stuff like that. So the first dodo was not actually eaten, it was actually captured and taken to the zoo, and I don't know how the thing happened where it became food, but slowly humans started eating dodo, and unfortunately the reproduction level, or how dodos come into this world, was very slow compared to other animals, and they never got the time and space to do so because humans were just too busy eating them, and that is how they are extinct. Of course, we all know and heard a lot of these stories happen time and time again with a lot of different species, and we are trying to rehabilitate a lot of species at the moment. However, we really need to do something about our humans. We don't set any goals that basically would help out the world in any form, and that is including me as well. I don't have any goals in my list where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna walk more or something instead of taking the car or the bus because it's more convenient. And I'm not going to sit here and sit on a high chair and tell everyone to be considerate while I'm flying on private jets or something. Yep, that's a Taylor Swift dig. And you might be shocked hearing this because I am a big Taylor Swift fan. However, I think it's time for me to even discuss this on here. I don't think I'm a fan of her as a person anymore. I used to be, honestly. I felt like she was, very outspoken, a feminist. However, and unfortunately, I feel like it's a very, very calculated image that she's portraying. And I might lose followers, or I might lose people, or, in 1,000 years when someone happens to come onto this podcast, they'll be like, oh, how could you hate Taylor Swift? But I don't hate Taylor Swift. I think I just don't support her on a personal endeavors anymore. I love her art. I love her songs. So I'm grateful for the songs and the creativity. However, her as a person, I don't support. And that's because she's been quiet on a lot of the things that I wish she had spoken about. I wish she had spoken about the Palestinian cause. I wish she spoke about the genocide that's happening in Palestine. I wish she spoke about, the women suffering in Iran, or anywhere else. Because, of course, she can choose her security, her everything, and she's a human as well. But if you are given this platform, and people are supporting you and they are listening to you, because then you have that kind of responsibility. For example, back in I don't remember the exact year. I think 2016 or 2018, one of those years when there was elections in America. She actually posted a story about signing up for votes, and that was actually a trigger for an uptick actually for a lot of young voters to register themselves who wouldn't have in the first place. So that she has that impact. Recently, I think there was some protest. Someone had passed away in one of her concerts in her Era store. And she said something along the lines she couldn't really speak about it because the responsibility of the security of her fans and everyone lies on her and stuff, which I understood. Which I think when people were asking me that, hey, you are a Swiftie and she's not saying anything about things that you're passionate about or things that that other celebrities like her ex Joe Alwyn has spoken about. What do you say about that? Like, how can you support her? And then I would be a bit taken aback because I thought in my head that maybe she's taking the time to finish her Era store and then she'll speak about it, but she hasn't. So I have no more excuses. I love her songs, but not her as a person. It's very sad to even think of that, and I know a lot of people around me and you, my listener, might also be going through the same thing where one of your favorite artists have not spoken on the Palestinian genocide that's happening and always was happening, or they've not spoken on a cause that they should have, and it can be difficult. And this is often a conversation that I have with other people who support artists, of course, where we can support the art but not the person. The art is important, the artist isn't. And it's a very, very dangerous place. I think that's also where my mental health wasn't right a lot of the times, because I was like, I'm going to the Era store. I'm going to, enjoy the nostalgia and stuff and everything. However, in the back of my mind, I'm still like waiting for her to say something on this, So it's a very, very precarious position to be in. But my stance is I don't support her as a person, as an individual. Neither do I support anyone else who have not spoken out, because in this world you cannot have a neutral stance in politics. Everything is political. You going out and purchasing something is a political move. You as a human doing anything is political. We live in monarchies, democracy or dictatorship or whatever it is. Every opinion of yours is taking a political stance, and neutrality is not a political stance. It can't be, not at this given time and stage. So if you are one of those people who are like, these things, they're not really happening around me, so I don't really care, I'll just read one or two articles. Wrong. Because this is exactly what all of the oppressors, the colonizers take advantage of, the ignorance of the public. Because they think that they can sway you very easily with their PR moves, with their public notions or public activities that they do on purpose, and you give in. You just like, oh yeah, this happened. So please educate yourself. There is no end age of learning. We are always learning something, and even if it's sad and it's a lot of pressure, do it, because when the next generation asks you what did you do, you don't want to say, oh, I had a neutral stance. No, you don't want the next generation to be as complacent as the ones previous, because that's not going to be enough to save what's happening in the current events. Anyways, as you know, I'm going to move on to the next section of this podcast, which is flipping my favorite book, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. So let's flip. Oh, wow. Negativity. Okay. Very, very, what's it called? I forgot the word. On theme? Yeah. We can't stop watching car crashes and pay more attention to bad news and find ourselves absolutely enthralled by the destruction and drama in people's lives. And it's not because we are morbid or completely masochistic. It's actually because we only have the capacity to be selectively attentive, and we perceive negative news to be more important and profound. Therefore, what our attention should go to first. Part of the reason for this is the essence of mysteriousness. When we don't know the purpose of negativity in an existential sense, we become fascinated by it. Wow. And I agree with this, right? This is why news works, because news is always giving you something to worry about, to be concerned about. And we are so focused on the negativity that we don't want to look at the positive. And it's kind of like a feedback to myself as well. Wow, I'm still like taken aback that I flipped to that quote from the book. But it's interesting because let me tell you a story. So we have this asteroid that's going to pass through Earth, I think this year. If not this year, then next year. It's going to pass through Earth. There's not going to be any impact. However, there's a little like of 0.2 something percent that it can enter the trajectory and actually go into orbit. And because it might go into orbit, if it enters that particular tiny zone, there is a chance, again 0.2 something chance that, or I'm not even saying the number right, but it's a very, very small chance that it will impact Earth on its orbit. And if it impacts Earth, 500 kilometers of landmass or water or whatever will be impacted. Now, understand that when I said this, you were like, oh my God, we have a chance of being impacted. No, it's a very small percentage. So that's the thing. Your mind immediately would go to like, oh my God, there's a chance that everything's gonna end. We're gonna be hit by an asteroid and stuff. No, small percentage, right? And I think that's the focus we should be. That when you are reading something, when you are hearing something from someone, when you are listening to the news or a podcast, or you are reading a book or an opinion piece or an article or someone's Instagram post or story, read it to comprehend the meaning. Because nowadays, a lot of the times, whatever is posted online or published it says something and there's an underlining of something. So you might read it and you'd be like, oh my God, that's so negative. But read it properly to understand, is it really negative, or is the news just pushing me to be like scared and worried and concerned for absolutely no reason? Little breadcrumb of thought for the ending of this podcast. But thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, for supporting in any way and every way you can. On Instagram, Bengali Girl by NTK. I do have a small series that I'm running, which is the things I bought during a Menti Bee. Of course, disclaimer, I am getting all the help and all the support that I need. But, there can be days where everything is just too triggering and everything is very overwhelming. So even though it's a series, please don't be concerned, because these are very well spaced out videos that I've just compiled, and I'm going to post them because this is all something that I did last year. And I'm doing it only because I feel like it's very, very important to talk about the stupid things we do when we're going through shit. But thank you so much, and I hope to be back. Bye.